Hello my friends, my name is Luisa and this is the Lulu Blue Studio. It's finally October, it's finally autumn, and for this reason I've decided to paint this floral composition and I'm going to bring you along. This is a floral composition where we're going to use more the fall colors, so more orange colors, red colors, and I'm going to show you how to paint this loose style floral piece in a very easy way. Let's start painting. In this watercolor flower tutorial, we are going to practice our brush strokes mainly with a round brush in size 12. This is at least what I'm using and I recommend you to use also a round brush. First thing, I'm mixing a little bit of yellow ochre, a touch of Scarlet Red and Quinacridone Magenta to create a sort of pink color that I'm going to use to create the first flower in the center of the page. I'm using the tip of this round brush to create the center of this rose, and I'm going to use the belly of this brush with a little bit of water to create the outer petals that are a little bit thicker. For the center part of this rose, I'm using a quite concentrated color, and to create the other petals, I am using a higher concentration of water. I am mixing on the color palette different percentages of yellow ochre, Quinacridone Magenta with a touch of Scarlet Red to create different colors that I'm going to use to create the petals of this rose. The center part of this rose is quite close and I've created that mainly using the tip and the belly of this brush. And now, using mainly the belly of this same round brush and using less concentrated pigment and a little bit more water, I'm creating more petals in the outer part of this rose. I'm mixing a little bit more of transparent orange and I am going to create a similar flower under this first one. To paint this flower composition, I'm following a picture that I found on Pinterest. And mainly I am using warm color tones in the shades of orange, red, and I'm adding quite a lot of yellow ochre into my brush strokes to recreate this flower composition and to give it these autumn vibes that I aim to provide through this tutorial. And so in the first part of this tutorial, we are using this round brush to lay the first layer of paint all over the page by creating the overall shape of all of these flowers. We are using more concentrated pigment where we want the flowers to be darker, and we are using a higher concentration of water and therefore less pigment to create petals that are more subtle and less defined. For this composition, I've decided to create all of these flowers concentrated in the center part of the page, and therefore we are creating this first layer and the shapes of these flowers concentrated in this area. At this point, I've decided to add a touch of Quinacridone Purple to this fourth flower, and therefore I'm mixing Quinacridone Purple with a little bit of Scarlet Red and transparent orange to create this new flower. In this case, I've decided to create the center of the flower actually in transparent orange and the other petals, the outer petals, in Quinacridone Purple. I mix the orange with the purple to create a sort of bridge between all of the flowers. I'm adding through the wet on wet technique some more concentrated orange into the center part of this purple flower. If you like to paint flowers and you would like to improve your watercolor skills, I encourage you to download the Beginner's Guide to Watercolor Flower Painting, which is a guide and a 10-page ebook that I wrote for you and you can download for free by clicking on the link in the description down below. In this guide, I explain you what are the best supplies for watercolor painting, in my opinion, at least the supplies to start with, and I start to explain you step by step how to paint loose style flowers. I tell you about techniques and what are the best brush strokes to practice to obtain nice flowers. At this point, going back to our flower composition, I'm just adding through the wet on wet technique more concentrated Quinacridone Magenta using the tip of my brush into the wet petals of this flower I've created. This flower is mainly a mixture of Quinacridone Magenta and transparent orange. And at this point, taking advantage of the shape of this brush, I start to create this flower, and I'm going to keep this flower much more lighter compared to all of the other ones. Basically, I want this flower to pop compared to all of the other flowers just by having a different color values. And this means that this flower is created with petals that are much lighter, so the concentration of pigment is not as high as all of the other flowers that are surrounding it. To create these petals, I'm basically taking advantage of the shape of this round brush, and I'm pressing onto the paper the whole length, the belly of this brush. I'm just adding a few more concentrated brush strokes into the center to create a little bit more definition, but this whole flower is much lighter compared to all of the other ones. I add the last flower in orange color, and I create this flower in this position because I just wanted to create a composition that is pretty clustered in the center part of the page. And then with some lemon yellow and a touch of yellow ochre, I start to create these flowers that I reference from the picture on Pinterest. And they have shapes of their petals similar to leaves, but they are not leaves, they are actually flowers. And this is what I am trying to do, using different concentrations of yellow ochre and lemon yellow. I made a list of all the supplies I'm using, and you can find it in the description down below. If you like this video, press like down below, and if you want to support me with the creation of other videos like this one, please subscribe to this channel to help me to create free content for you to watch. At this point, I take a smaller brush, this is a round brush in size 6, and I mix a little bit of Mars Black with the Quinacridone Purple to create a sort of deep purple to create branches of dark color that are extending to the corners of this page. These are sort of branches that are going to frame also a little bit these flowers, and I've decided to create these branches in dark color because I think they pop from the composition and they also highlight the flowers that are in the center. To create these dark branches, I am holding my brush very lightly, and I'm not adding too much pressure because I wanted to create these fine lines and sort of very little fine brush strokes that are in round shape. To create these darker branches, I also remember to vary the color value of the color that I have on the brush, and therefore sometimes I just remove a part of the pigment in the cup of water. This will give the impression that some darker branches are closer to the eyes of the observer, while other branches are actually in the background. And I am placing these black branches around my flowers, and I actually take advantage of the white spaces I find, and I put them in a way that sort of frame the flowers I created in the center part of the page. I really like how this composition is taking shape. I have decided to add a few additional brush strokes as layers on top of the flowers to highlight most of them, but not all, and to create a little bit more depth in this composition. If you like to add the layers, you can follow this tutorial, but if you are happy also with the layers you have created so far and you like flower compositions with just one layer, you can also stop at this point. So what I am doing is taking this round brush in size 6 and taking a little bit more concentrated pigment to create more layers and more brush strokes on top of the first layer that now is completely dry. Basically, I am adding these brush strokes where I feel that the petals are located and thinking that these brush strokes need to highlight the shape of the petals. To create these brush strokes, I'm using similar colors I've used to create the base of these flowers. I'm using mainly the belly of this small round brush to create these petals. It is up to you to decide if you like to add layers, and so if you wanted to follow this same approach, or if, for example, you're satisfied with the shape and the flowers you have created up until now. In my case, I've decided to add the layers to all of the flowers except the very light flower that is located in the lower part of this composition and is in light pink. For all of the other flowers, instead, I've decided to add layers, and I'm using different color values to have a few petals that are more concentrated and other petals that are much lighter. I really like the colors of this composition, and I really like how all of this is coming together. If you also like the outcome of this flower composition and if you find this tutorial useful, press like down below. I add the last touches to this floral composition, and in particular with this small round brush, I'm just adding the stems of the yellow flowers. And with some more concentrated yellow ochre and a little bit of lemon yellow, I use this same brush to create a little bit more layers on these yellow flowers. If you find tutorials in this style useful, let me know in the comments below, and also subscribe to this channel. Let me know also what you would like to see next. I'd love to create content that is useful for you. As always, thank you for watching. See you in my next tutorial.